So, in the last lecture, we looked into what all components are required for an optical link, like optical amplifiers, the connectors, splitters, and also the joints we have seen. We also looked into the switches. So all along with these two all components, the two major components of any optical link are the light source and the detector. Light source, which converts an electrical signal into an optical pulse, and a detector which converts an optical pulse into an electrical signal. So today the whole focus will be on a light source, a device which can convert an electrical signal into an optical pulse. Now, what should be the characteristics of a light source? Definitely, it has to give us the light at the wavelength which we want to transmit. So, a light source should be such that it gives us the basically the low dispersion and minimum attenuation wavelengths we should be able to produce using the light source. As well as we know, the reason for the dispersion is the large spectral width. So the beam width of the source should be as small as possible, because that only will help us to transmit the high data rates, because that will limit the dispersion. It should be efficient, it should be compact, reliable, durable, and inexpensive. It should be also small in size, because we are talking about feeding the information into a medium which is an optical fiber, and the dimension of the fiber is as thin as your hair. So we need to make it compatible, in a sense that the dimension should be matched, so that the output from the light source can be fed into the medium. Now, what all kind of optical sources you have come across, and you have been seeing are, one is the most commonly everyone has seen and used, is the wideband continuous spectra source. That is your tube lights or the incandescent lamps that you have in your homes. That is the light source. The second one is a monochromatic incoherent light source, that is an LED. And the last one is a monochromatic coherent source, that is laser. For optical communication, we use the LEDs and the lasers, and not this continuous spectra, wideband spectra, continuous spectra. The reason for it, as you know, is that it has got the light which is definitely not at the wavelength of minimum attenuation, and secondly the source is of such a large size that it is incompatible with the fiber. The light output from it cannot be coupled easily into the fiber. The dimensions of incandescent lamps is much larger than that of a fiber. You cannot feed it, and the most important, it does not give you the wavelength which has got a minimum attenuation, and hence you will not be using it for your optical communication. And LED and lasers, if we compare, the LEDs have got a large spectral width and therefore used for a small distance optical communication, whereas lasers, which have got a very small spectral width, they are coherent sources. That is, the coherent sources is all the light output will be in phase with all the photons that are coming out of the device, will be in phase, and hence will be having a more smaller spectral width. When I say incoherent, the photons, that is the light output from an LED, will not be in phase, and hence they have a larger spectral width. Now, what are the requirements? Because basically, when I'm looking at making a lights or designing a light source, so the design consideration when you are making a light source is definitely it should emit the wavelength, as I told you in previously. It should emit a wavelength where the fiber has low losses. That is, it should be able to give you the wavelengths in the band of 1330, 1550 and also the 850. Now those bands, you will be able to get it is by selecting the proper material. Why? Because that material is actually deciding what will be the output wavelength. It is actually the band gap of the material. That is the band energy gap between the conduction and the valence band, which decides what will be the output wavelength. So how we can decide what could be the right material for using for a particular wavelength is we can actually do our calculations and find out which will be the right material for use as an optical source for a particular wavelength. In fact, you will come across the term called as band gap engineering when you are reading this chapter. The reason for it that introducing that concept is as you change this band gap, your wavelength output is changing, and you can actually change the composition of a material by changing the percentage of each component, and hence your band gap dependent on it will change and the corresponding wavelength will change. So basically, how do we decide we'll be getting the wavelength, what wavelength will be emitted out? It is dependent on the material, and we have the freedom to actually, when I'm talking about design requirements, you have a freedom to design what kind of material composition will be used, which will be giving you the required wavelength. The second is most important. We are looking into getting low dispersion, so narrow spectral width. That means the source, all the photons, all the light output from the source should be in phase, and hence that will give us the small spectral width, and that will minimize the dispersion. Ideally, the light output should be highly directional. Is basically it should not be that that will having highly directional will help us to direct the light into the acceptance angle of the fiber, and hence maximum coupling efficiency will be there. What is the coupling efficiency? You have a source and you have the fiber, right? So this source has got some output coming out. Normally your source are Lambertian sources. I hope you remember what is a Lambertian sources, which has got the maximum, that is the power that you take is in the 120-degree cone, right? This is your Lambertian pattern. Now this fiber will have this numerical aperture, or that is an acceptance angle. Okay, so what we want is, if it is highly directional, what we can do is we can actually feed all the power from your source into the fiber, and your coupling efficiency is the fiber in the optical power inserted into the fiber, optical power inserted upon the optical power from the source, right? So if the source has got some X power, and if Y is getting coupled into the fiber, it is Y by X is your coupling efficiency. And always you want it to be as high as possible so that maximum power gets inserted into the fiber. That will happen only if P, or ideal condition is PO, the power in optical power inserted into the fiber is equivalent to the power output from the source. So you cannot afford to lose it just because the output is going in a direction which is outside the acceptance angle of the fiber. Now the physical dimensions of the to suit, as I told you, it has to be compatible, and your size of the source and the size of the source and the fiber should be Actually, it's both are integrated on basically they come as an integrated system. What happens is your source, and from the source what will happen is you will have a medium in between, and that is, as we discussed in last class, this is a point where when the signal is coming from the source and feeding, there will be an air gap, and that is a point of loss because of Fresnel's reflection. And that how it comes is they come it as a part of integrated. यहाँ पे आपका index match रहता है, and we even use the lenses. We'll come to the structures later on. It is a kind of a lens, you can say, is used so that all the signal coming from the source is directed inside the fiber, so that we don't have the optical power loss. Now the next is, it should be preferably the source has to be linear. What do you mean by source being linear? Can anyone tell me? Why do you want the source to be linear? Do you remember the region of operation for your device? You always take the linear region. This is what do you mean by a linear region? That is your optical output is linearly proportional to the input. So the input here is an electrical current which is coming to the source. What is the current carrying? The current is carrying the variations in the information. As your information is, say, zeros and one, accordingly the output power is changing. So always to have a perfect replica of information and feeding it correctly into your system, you want your system to work in the linear region. I hope all of you remember this point when you were studying your transistor operation in the linear region. Similarly, in this case also, we want that whatever is my input pulse, that is the information, accordingly my output pulse, optical power output should change, and therefore it should have a linear relationship. Capable of signal modulation over a wide band. Here what do you want is the normally if we talk about optical communication, the information, if it is less than say 10 gigahertz, directly whatever you are putting an information, you come, the output is an optical power. But greater than 10 gigahertz, this actually the sources cannot directly modulate, means at such a high speed directly modulate your information into an optical signal. So there we use the device called as Mach-Zehnder interferometer, known as MZI. Mach-Zehnder interferometer. I'll just write it. Now what is this device? This device is nothing but it is a combination of two. You remember the splitters we had studied last time, right? So it's a two wire structures when you combine. And in this what happens is, when you want to have, because of your information, right? Your information source is actually modulating the refractive index of this material, and hence what happens is, sometimes when you want say one to transfer at the output, what will happen is this will produce, both the signals will have the same phase and hence will have the same constructive behavior, and will get one at the output. In case you are transferring zero, what happens is, this information that you have to transfer will actually make the refractive index of the material such that when the two signals, the same signal when splitting into the two, coming out and recombining here, one will have a negative phase and the other will have a positive phase. So that's called as a destructive interference, and hence you get a 0. So it is basically as per the information this phase is introduced, and you have either constructive or destructive because you are transferring anyhow this ones and zeros, and accordingly we get our sequence of ones and zeros, and that is how you do the modulation. Normally you want that for gigahertz, you should till 10 gigahertz the signal directly we should be able to, your source should be, we should not require any additional device, your source should be able to do the signal modulation, and must couple significant optical power. So as I told you, it should have a high coupling efficiency, and for that we even use embed in our system the lenses. They are micro lenses, very small in size. They are actually fabricated on your system and hence help us to couple the maximum power into our fiber, and it should give you a stable output irrespective of the environmental condition. The output should not vary. It should be cheap, highly reliable. Now, how do these basically this now how do this semiconductor LED, or what is the configuration of an LED and how does it work? Now, this LED, as you all know, is nothing but a simple PN junction, which is forward biased. Forward biased by the current, forward bias current, which is actually carrying the information which you want to send on an optical carrier. Now what happens here is, if we can understand it better with the help of energy band diagram. All of you know there is a for any semiconductor there will be a conduction band and a valence band. Now what happens is, when you have a forward current, right, the energy, the carriers gain energy, they move to the conduction band, right? Now this conduction band here, they are like at not an equilibrium condition. So what will happen is, they will immediately want to fall down. When they are falling down, what is happening is they are moving from higher energy state to the lower energy state. So what will happen is the energy will be released. This energy is in the form of a photon or light corresponding to an energy h nu, which is equivalent to Eg, the band gap. I told you, na, it is Eg which decides what will be the wavelength that will be emitted by your semiconductor. So if I write H nu, HF, basically nu is nothing but your frequency. So it is Eg is equivalent to Hc by lambda. Or we can say that the lambda, what is the lambda that we will be getting, or wavelength of the photon that we will be getting, is Hc by Eg. Now if we write Eg in electron volts, what is electron volt unit? Eg in electron volts, can anyone tell me? If I say 1.4 eV is the band gap, what does it mean? How will you write it in your problem? Have you seen this unit? Yes or no? Yeah, electron volt. So what is the value of EV? When I'm writing EV, what does it mean? Basically, you are, when I
1.6
get some
into 10
EG and
raised
I
to minus
divide
9.
it by the charge of one electron, that is 1.6 into 10 to power of minus 19. The unit from volts get converted to EV. H is a Boltzmann constant and C is the velocity of the light. And this comes out to be 1.24, right? They are all constants. So if while solving the problem, you can use this relation 1.24 if I substitute the values divided by Eg in electron volts. Okay. Now, one more important thing about when I say that this carrier is falling from a conduction band to the valence band, the energy is released in a photon. This may actually happen in a special type of semiconductor, that is a direct band gap semiconductor. So we actually classify our semiconductors into two categories. The first one is a direct semiconductor and the other is an indirect. Now, what is the difference between direct and indirect is we can understand with the help of a energy band diagram. This is how actually your energy bands look like. You actually, normally your conduction band, we have three vector momentum, the K, L and M. So when your maximum, normally what happens is how does a charge transfer takes place, or so it is always from the maximum of valence band to the minimum of the conduction band. And how does it fall down also? It is from the minimum of the conduction band to the maximum of the valence band. Now what happens is, this is a simple case of a direct semiconductor, right? When your maximum of the valence band and minimum of the conduction band are aligned in a sense having the same momentum, and there is no requirement of change in momentum for the recombination. But if I take a case of an indirect semiconductor, what do you see here is this: the momentum of the minimum of the conduction band and the maximum of the valence band is different. They are not aligned. For the carrier to fall down, recombine with the holes, what it has to do is it has to actually go for change in momentum, and then it will fall down, and then there will be a release of energy. Now, when this happens, is change in momentum, there is a third particle release. And when this kind of energy release takes place, it is non-radiative in nature. What is radiative and non-radiative? And here the energy release is in radiative. Radiative means the output energy will be in the form of a light. Non-radiative means it will not be light, but the energy definitely will be released, which will be in the form of heat. That will actually, this falling down of your carriers from the conduction band to valence band will actually result in release of heat energy, not a photon, and therefore you will not get an output as light. So if I talk about semiconductor materials that are used for making your LEDs, It is not silicon, but it is gallium arsenide, indium gallium arsenide, which are the alloys of 3,5 group of your periodic table. You can actually change your configuration of how much gallium, how much indium, how much arsenic, how much phosphorus you will be adding, and then you can vary your band gap. That is what is band gap engineering, which I was talking about, and change the material properties, change the EG, and hence we can have a different wavelength being released at the output. Is it clear? Is this working clear? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Okay, so as I was talking about what is the direct band gap semiconductor material, they are the 3,5 ternary alloys, which has gallium arsenide to gallium phosphide, and there is you can change the composition of the each material, and as per that change in the composition of the material, you will have the different energy band gap. So as I was talking about, when you place your values of H, C and E, your final equation of wavelength is 1.24 by Eg in electron volts. Okay, so this we have done. So this is what is your carrier falling down and release in the photons, light emission in a semiconductor. Now, the relation between this is the normally you can have a configuration where different composition of indium, gallium arsenide and phosphorus is there, where you have a relation of x and y as 0.45, and you can use, in case you are not given an EG but is given the composition of how much percentage is your arsenic, how much percentage is your gallium, your values of x or y is given. You can calculate your EG using the relation in electron volts as 1.35 minus 0.72 y plus 1.12 y square. So you can be asked the numericals related to finding EG, what is a or what should be the EG to get a particular wavelength, or what should be the combination to get that particular EG. So let's solve this problem. Everyone quickly, I hope you can note down this relationship. 1.35 minus 0.72 y plus 0.12 y square. We'll come to what is this double heterojunction later. But just to start with, you basically you can classify your LED as one semiconductor LED or a double heterojunction design with a composition of a quaternary alloy such that X is 0.2. So what we know is X by Y. Your X by Y is fixed, right? It's 0.45. Now X is given to be 0.2. What is Y? Tell me. 0.44. Everyone, are you getting 0.44? Yes. Okay, now once you have your Y, can you calculate the EG? EG का formula क्या था हमारा? EG in electron volts. Your Y is 0.44. Substitute Y equal to 0.44 and tell me the value of Eg. 1.05. Yes, everyone, are you getting 1.05? What is the unit? Electron volt. Directly you are getting the value in electron volts, correct. Now once you have your E, can you now finally what are you asked is operating wavelength. What is the formula for operating wavelength? I told you it is 1.24 divided by Eg in electron volts. How much are you getting? 1.17. What is the unit? C. Directly the value that you are getting is in micrometers. Yes, everyone, could you do this? This is a simple question that can be asked as operating wavelength for a material which maybe you will be asked to design what should be the configuration to get a particular wavelength. Okay. Now the reverse question is there. You are asked what should be your composition so that you have your operation at 1.27 wavelength. So your wavelength is given to you. Can you find out your Eg? In electron volts is 1.24 by lambda. Yeah, how much? 0.976 electron volts. Okay. Now, once you have this, can you tell me the value of Y? Y निकाल सकते हैं? Once you know this, you have the formula for Eg. Eg is 1.35 in electron volts. Minus 0.72 Y plus 0.12 y square. So the answer comes out to be 0.57. Are you getting, everyone? Please check it. Now y you get as 0.57. You know x by y is 0.45. So what is x? 0.45 into 0.574. Yes, 0.258. Yeah, 0.26. Okay, this is what you have to get. What is x? What is y? Yes. Okay, good. Now, this actually plot shows you that how you vary the configuration, how the energy band is changing, and accordingly what is the wavelength that can be extracted through that particular material. So gallium arsenide can be used for the range of 800 nanometers, that is for first window. Indium gallium arsenide phosphorus can be used for your band number 2 and band number 3. So these are some of the configuration, specific configuration talked about for a particular wavelength. So it is dependent upon the material that you can extract the wavelength, and you can actually select the material that can be used for source of a particular wavelength. So as I told you, the basic working principle is electron hole combination. When the carriers are excited to the higher energy, they fall down and release a photon. Now, how are they excited to higher energy? When their system is forward biased and it has with the help of a forward current. Okay. Now, how do we normally do is we keep the N side as heavily doped than the p side, and that actually gives us an advantage that we can have fast recombinations, and not actually what is expected is you should get a high intensity of the light. And if the area is larger, what will happen is the light gets distributed and get absorbed by the material, and hence we don't get the large output. So to get a high intensity output, you need to have a device with the smaller dimensions, and that will happen when you are doping it heavily to form a PN junction barrier, and that can be overcome by the forward current. Okay. Now, the higher concentration conduction electrons in the N side encourages the diffusion from N to the P side, and the net electron division is prevented by the barrier, right? So what is done with the barrier? You are actually giving the forward current to overcome the barrier. So as you see here, the carriers with the forward current, the carriers are Crossing the junction, they are recombining, they are basically falling down and releasing the photon energy. And this is spontaneous in nature, that it's there is nothing which is actually instigating this fall down. They fall down after every carrier has got their minority carrier lifetime. You remember that? So till that minority carrier lifetime, it is actually traveling and then falls down randomly, and there is a random. So therefore, the LED is called as an incoherent source because of the random release of the photon energy. So this is spontaneous and forward biased PN junction. Okay, so this band also I explained. Now this is the diagram which I was talking about when photon release is there. Now, in case we want to have a stimulated emission, what is a stimulated emission? Is a coherent output that all the photons are aligned. Then, in that case, we need an external excitation, that is you. With the forward current, your carriers are placed into the conduction band, and when a light incident on it makes the carrier fall down, that one carrier excites two more carriers, and then all the carriers, the photons, not carriers, the light carriers or the photons that will be released will be coherent, and hence will get us that is happening through the stimulated emission. Yeah. So this is the diagram which I was explaining you for the direct and the indirect. So if this is an indirect semiconductor, as you can clearly see, the maximum of the valence band and the conduction of the minimum are at different energy. And therefore, for a recombination to happen, the carrier has to change its momentum, lose the energy, and that results in the release of a third particle. And such kind of recombinations are always non-radiative in nature, and this in this case directly recombination, they are radiative, means release of light energy. So these are some of the features which I have already explained. Now, how can we improve the performance? Now, what is the maximum efficiency that we get with these structures where you have a PN junction, and as soon as your carrier crosses the junction or the barrier junction, there is a recombination taking place. It becomes a minority carrier. There is a recombination taking place and a photon is released. Now, what happens is this recombination can happen through, as I was talking about, in the whole device. If suppose this is a, I'm just drawing for reference, this is a PN junction, and once the carrier crosses, it can be anywhere. So this recombination is taking place anywhere and the photons are released, and because of the larger surface area where this recombination can take place, this is actually reducing the intensity of the light that is coming out, and there are chances of absorption in the material itself, which will actually further reduce the efficiency of an LED. LEDs have got a very low efficiency. Now, how do we, or how can we improve this LED structures to have an enhanced light intensity with a higher efficiency? Is by using an edge emitters. So it is again, as you see, it's a PN junction, but you have an active layer, a thin active layer, where all the recombinations are taking place. That happens with the help of a double heterojunction structure, where this active layer that you are introducing will introduce an additional barrier. So in case when the current is coming, the minority carrier crosses the junction and come into the active layer, the recombination, all the recombination will take place in this thin layer only, and the carrier cannot cross this junction here because of a larger barrier existing, and hence all the recombination is confined to this particular area, and from here we have all the light being released, and moreover for only one direction release of light, all the other edges of your devices are cleaved or made into a reflectors, and this side is only made with an anti-reflecting coating so that all the light is coming out of the device. Otherwise what happens is, you have got, there is again another efficiency term that comes is, although you have large number of photons being generated, but what you are is coming out, that is an external quantum efficiency, is the number of photons generated internally, sorry, extracted, the photons extracted upon photons generated into the device. Okay, so this efficiency again we want it to be high, ki whatever you are generating it should come out, then only we can think of coupling a high power from the source into the fiber. So for that, this high intensity as well as higher efficiency we get with this configuration of edge emitters. But here what we want is it should be confined, all the recombination should be confined to this thin layer called as an active layer, and there should be one point from where we are getting the output. Okay, now what one first I will tell you this and then we will come. Yeah, so homojunction, as I was talking about, is in the active layer, or basically the region where you want the recombination to take place. You want wherever you want the recombination to take place, you simply apply a forward bias. Once you apply the forward bias, you see the barrier is reduced. Your the carriers cross the junction, they become the minority carrier, and after their minority carrier lifetime, they fall down and release in the photon. This happens on both the side. But what is happening is, this is, as I told you, happening throughout the device and hence reducing the intensity. How we can reduce it? By confining all the recombination to a smaller area. So what is happening is, this whole area, the no recombination is taking place, no release of energy, and hence what is happening is you get a high intensity light that I was talking about. Now how we can achieve homostructures? It is not possible to achieve this, but with an heterostructures we can do it. So how do we make a heterostructure? Is we have a simple PN junction, that is of normal, हमने जैसा बोला था आपका एल्युमिनियम गैलियम आर्सेनाइड का P है and N plus aluminum gallium arsenide. In between the two we sandwich a gallium arsenide P type. Now the impact of this, as you can see on this uh, energy band diagram, is you can see a barrier at aluminum gallium arsenide and gallium arsenide PN junction, and again a small barrier at P type aluminum gallium arsenide and P type gallium arsenide. Now what happens is, when you have the forward current, for the carriers to cross this barrier is a smaller current, means you set a value of your forward current or forward energy for the carriers, that it is enough to cross this junction, but they don't have the enough energy to cross this barrier. And hence what happens is, you can see all the recombination will take place in this particular thin area only, and no carrier is going and moving to this area for any kind of recombination or release of photons, nor are the carriers from this area getting coming to this. So this layer is called as confinement layer, which is restricting all the recombination in this area, and hence we get an optical light with high intensity because of this heterostructures. And therefore all the structures of surface led or edge led that I was talking about, we use this kind of configuration. Is it clear to everyone? The heterostructure very important, and how does it work? Yes or no? Is it clear, or should I explain it again? Okay. So I'll quickly repeat this part of heterostructure and homostructure is the structure, the configuration, the active region where the recombination is taking place. It's a PN junction as I explained you. Now this PN junction could be a homo junction that is made up of a same material, and hence the once you apply the forward bias, the carrier from one side can diffuse to the other side where they become the minority carrier, and after the minority carrier lifetime they fall down from the conduction band to the valence band and release a photon. Now, this can happen throughout the device structure. So, the problem with this kind of HOMO devices is it has got a low intensity, higher absorption, so low efficiency because higher surface area. So, high absorption is there, and low efficiency of number of photons extracted to the number of photons being generated. Okay. Now if we come to an heterostructure, as you see in this case, we have a kind of a confinement layer, a thin, very thin layer of a material with a different band gap energy sandwiched between the p and the n side of the same semiconductor PN junction. Now, because of this, what happens is you see a small barrier on one end and the larger barrier on the other end, because of which the carriers cross one junction but are not able to cross the other junction. And hence, once they cross it, all the recombination takes place in this thin layer, confinement layer, and therefore all the energy is released here. So we get a high intensity, low absorption, and a better efficiency in the heterojunction structure. The one which we use is a aluminum gallium arsenide PN junction. In between is sandwiched is a gallium arsenide, P-type gallium arsenide, giving us a variation in the energy band diagram where all the recombination takes place at the P and N aluminum gallium arsenide and P-type gallium arsenide, and hence because of the low barrier, and hence we get a high intensity because of the use of heterostructures. Is it clear to all of you? Yes or no? Okay, so now we will take a break of 10 minutes and then I will start with the structures, and once we are done with it, we'll go for the lasers, right? So today we will be able to finish our sources. Okay, so now when you're making your device, there are certain problem, because when you're making especially the heterostructure with a different material being acting as a confinement layer, some of the problem that we come across or the defects in the device structure is mismatch between the two crystal structures will exist, right? Both are made up of a different material, or in case there could be a chances of mismatch. But when you are using a configuration by changing the compositions, we can actually overcome that problem of mismatch in the crystal structure. Crystal, I hope you remember, your device is basically, sorry, your material. Yeah, your material, your each crystal is a cube, right? And when you are making another layer of different material, if these matches, if this size of your cube matches, then it is not a problem. But if there is a mismatch, the other layer has to stretch, or this layer has to actually stretch to actually when they are combining, so that will create a stress and the strain and lead to crystal defects, which will become the absorption points and of your carriers, and that will reduce the efficiency of the device. So it is very important to have a good efficiency, that we should be able to remove the mismatches in the two crystal structures or the materials that we are using, or use the materials with the same crystal structures. uh, can be reduced by the lattice matching, that is the materials with the same lattice dimensions matching can be reduced, and therefore we use the alloys which have the same lattice, and hence uh, reduces the um, errors that are occurring at the because of the material mismatch. So it is in taken care that the gallium arsenide substrates with an excellent lattice matching is grown over your aluminum gallium arsenide while making a heterojunction LED. Now this also shows one more combination. This is an edge LED, that is through the edges we are emitting the light, and one other one is surface LED, that is from the top surface we emit the light. Rest other surfaces, they are acting as a mirror, and this is coated with an anti-reflection coating so that the light is going out and not reflecting back into the medium. Uh, Now, as I was talking about, when you are, this is a fiber and this is your LED. Now, what you want is there should be a maximum coupling efficiency. That is, all the light output from your LED should be getting coupled into the fiber. Now, to have that better coupling, what is done is, here you make this, what you see is called as a micro lens. So as a part of fabrication only, you have this micro lens being made, so that when all the light is coming out on this LED, so then it is actually at this point, it is converging and getting into the acceptance angle of your fiber, right? So this is what is the design consideration that we have to use. Normally, sometimes we even see they have a macro lens, that is a physical lens could be placed between your source and the fiber. That's called as a macro lens configuration, and in case you fabricate it as a part of your device, that is called as brew. I don't remember Dawson. That configuration is called as Lewis and Dawson. Let me check. Yeah, uh, Brewis and Dawson only, correct. So what? How does it look like? Is, I'll just tell you. You have this structure, then there is a kind of support, and from here the light is supposed to get inserted into the fiber, right here. So what is done is, at this point where the fiber is supposed to, you have an index matching material or something like that, but you can also have your lens, actually a micro lens being fabricated at this point, as you see it here, which will actually converge all the light into the fiber, and hence help us to get a better pattern. Now, one more advantage of this edge LED is your radiation patterns. अगर हम देखेंगे तो horizontal plane में क्या रहेगा? It is will be full Lambertian, that is 120. और अगर मैं vertical plane, because there is a confinement here, So what happens is it's only 30 degree, that's a spreading that we have of the radiation pattern. यहाँ पूरा Lambertian pattern रहेगा. Now because of an edge LED, you are able to confine the light output in one direction, that is to 30 degree, और horizontal direction में आपका Lambertian pattern है, that is 120. Okay. So this is initially, or you can say that traditionally, this was a dome kind of a configuration of an LED that is that is being used, which is covered with a dome. The reason for it is to have a critical angle at this point of so that maximum light can come out. Otherwise, because the light is coming out from a semicon through the air, there are chances of total internal reflection, no less light coming out. So this dome structure is also used to enhance the light coming out from the device. This I have already covered. So this also simple planar is your simple structure. This is your planar PN junction from where your light output is coming. Dome I have already shown you. Surface is also this configuration where the output is coming out from the surface using a double heterojunction configuration. Then edge LED from the corners from the confinement layer, and this is what you have in your syllabus, which we have already seen the structures. Now definitely your edge LED has more confinement as compared to the surface LEDs. So if we have to see the LED performance difference, the LED performance difference helps link designers decide which LED is appropriated for the, means depending upon the application, you would decide which, so whether you want to use a surface LED or an edge LED. For short distance, say 0 to 3 kilometer, low data rate fiber optics, SLEDs and surface LEDs and edge LEDs are preferred as the optical resources. As I told you, LEDs will be used only for a short distance communication because of a large spectral width. Okay. Surface LED, as I told you, is a Lambertian pattern it gives you. So it gives a wide area, wide far field that we get, but we can get a confinement in the edge LED, as I told you, in the radiation pattern. Edge LEDs may be modulated at the rate of 400 Mbps and can be used both for single and multi-mode fiber system. So this is, yeah, as I was talking about na surface LEDs, it's a Bruce LED that is called, that configuration which I showed you is called as Bruce. Okay. Yeah, this is the one which I was talking about, where you have a configuration, your structure is there, and you have an edged area where you insert the fiber so that maximum light can be coupled inside the fiber. You can even use lens, as I have showed you, micro lenses to couple maximum light into the fiber. So when you are using a surface LEDs, so again you can have the similar configuration to, or micro lenses or an index matching to couple the maximum light. Okay, so this is the radiation pattern which I was talking about. One side it's 120 and the other direction it's 30. Now, LED characteristics, if we see, this plot shows the spectral width is large, 24 nanometer is the spectral width. It gives you the light intensity and the current. It gives you the linear relationship as expected. We have already seen what are the expected characteristics, and the IV characteristics is till a threshold value. You have a zero current, and beyond that threshold value, you have a large current in your device. That is what we know for an LED. It's a simple PN diode. So there will be a cutoff voltage. Till then, there will be no current, and beyond that, the current will be flowing. So there is, you can say that a threshold value defined. After that, you have the current flowing through it. Yeah. So LED performance, I talked about various efficiencies, the coupling efficiency, the external efficiency. And in addition to that, you have a quantum efficiency, internal quantum efficiencies. How much is the, it's a radiative recombination taking place. That means if I have internal quantum efficiency, it is number of photons generated, that is inside the device, divided by number of electrons injected. Now, what is the number of photons generated? That is when you have the forward current, that is this electrons injected is nothing but symbolizing the forward current that you are putting into the device. And because of that forward current, your carriers get excited to the conduction band. And once they are falling from the conduction band, the photons are generated. Now, we all know that this, when the photons, the carriers are falling down, sometimes the combination could be radiative and sometimes it could be non-radiative, that is in the form of the energy could be released in the form of a heat. What we want is all the energy should be in photon. Ideally it should be one, but there are chances that sometimes the recombination will be non-radiative and releasing the energy in the form of a heat. Similarly, we to see the performance of an LED, we have external efficiency, which I have already told you about, and internal efficiency is how much is getting inserted, means you are giving certain light forward current, but how much is getting injected into your device, which may cause the release of a photon. That is the symbolizing the internal and the external quantum efficiency. Now, important thing is now we need to calculate what will be the current and the optical power relationship. We know that it's a direct relationship, but we need to calculate this relationship of current and the power. So suppose if you have n number of photons being released into the device, and each photon have an energy of h nu corresponding to the band gap, then the total energy of a photon will be h nu into the rate of generation of your photons, right? Now this, we know that we have an internal quantum efficiency, which is rate of generation of photons upon the total recombination that is taking place in your device. Okay. Yeah. So now to first let us, before we go to this, let me finish this part. So we know that the photon energy of a photon is number of photons into the h nu. The quantum efficiency is number of generated photons divided by number of injected electrons. Now, what is the number of injected electrons? If I is your forward current, right, injected current, right, and the charge of one carrier is E. So number of injected electrons will be the current divided by the number, the charge. So it is I by E, or I can write N as eta I by E. Now what is your, this is the energy of a photon. Now what is the power? Power is the rate of flow of the energy. That is E by T. Okay. So if I substitute this value of E here and divide it by time. So what I am getting is the rate of flow of my carriers. So I'll just put it here. This N by T is number of photons divided by the time. Now what we will do is, we'll introduce one more term. It is the rate of flow of dq by dt. Okay. So T will be dq by I. So number of photons by dq, the rate of flow of, that is rate of flow of photons or generation of photons by rate of flow of the carriers, h nu into I, the forward current. Okay. So what we will do is, this is nothing but our quantum efficiency, the rate of flow of your photons by the, this one is not correct. So this will be giving us eta h nu that we have it here is h nu eta I, and I ko we need to divide it by the charge of the, to get your energy, since the energy is in electron volts. So this is what we get as the optical power, and you can see that the power is directly proportional to current, and hence you are getting a straight line of optical power being generated and the current in your device. Now how do we, another way of calculating the quantum efficiency is, what is the quantum efficiency? The quantum efficiency is number of photons generated, which is nothing but the rate of radiative recombination represented as RR, or small r, I can say. and divided by the number of electrons injected. So number of electrons injected will give you either a radiative or a non-radiative recombination. So it can be written as RR plus RNR. Right? Is it clear? What I'm doing is, it is nothing but total recombination, the radiative recombination divided by the total recombination, which is written here is, total recombination is nothing but the current divided by the, what is total recombination? It's because of the total current. So it is number of rate will be I by E, that is R. So your quantum efficiency is radiative recombination by total. Now what is radiative recombination? We can also write it as, it is the rate of your carriers generated by the minority lifetime, radiative carrier minority lifetime. And the, for the non-radiative, it is delta number of carriers divided by the minority carrier life, non-radiative minority carrier lifetime. So this can be, if I substitute it here, what do we get? It is delta n, that is, I can also write that relation eta r radiative recombination by total, or radiative plus non-radiative as 1 by 1 plus RNR by R. If I represent it by the value as I told you, radiative and non-radiative recombination, if I substitute the values, we get it in the form of minority carrier lifetimes. And this is an important relationship that we need. And also finally, sometimes you are asked, you are given one value and you are asked to calculate the quantum efficiency using the minority carrier lifetime. Okay, this is an important proof. This I have already proved just now. तो हम लोग का क्या है, रेडिएटिव रिकॉम्बिनेशन इज नथिंग बट द क्वांटम एफिशिएंसी इनटू द टोटल. यस, ये है हमारा. ये एक और अनदर वे ऑफ राइटिंग इट इज द वे वन आई फाउंड आउट वाज यूजिंग द एनर्जी ऑफ अ फोटॉन. Another way of doing it is radiative recombination is quantum efficiency into the total carriers injected, that is I by E. Okay, and the internal quantum efficiency is the eta I by E HF. So we get the same relationship here which we have already derived. Okay, so now we just quickly need to solve these numericals and go to lasers. Actually, we don't have much in lasers because optical amplifiers and lasers have the same working principle. So I just want you to quickly try these two problems. The solution is already there. Just see, are you getting these values or not? You are already given total non-recombination, having a non-recombination time of non-radiative. It's not non-recombination, it's non-radiative time of 90 seconds and radiative recombination time of 60. So just substitute it here and get me the value of tau. Are you getting 36 nanosecond? And the second one is internal quantum efficiency. Yes. What answers are you getting? Are you getting the answers? Can you verify? Yes, both 50% efficiency. The one thing that I wanted to tell you is, please look at the efficiency of an LED. It's around maximum is 50 that you are seeing in this problem. Normally it is less than the 50%. Okay, so we need to actually see how we can actually increase it is by reducing this radiative recombination lifetime, making it, then only we'll be able to get a good LED or a higher efficiency. Okay, yeah, calculate this. Power also, you are asked to calculate power generated. All the formulas are written. You need to simply substitute the values and get the powers. Determine the total carrier recombination lifetime, that is tau, and the power internally generated within the device when the peak emission wavelength is 0.87 at a drive current of 40 milliamperes. So everything is given to you. Give me the value of tau, eta, and PIL. Yes. What is the answer that you are getting? Tau कितना आ रहा है? 37.5 units. So it is 37.5 nanoseconds. So tau is 37.5 nanoseconds. What is efficiency? Okay. Efficiency 62.5. Yeah. Substitute it here and tell me the value of PINT. How much is PIN? Internally generated optical power. Yes, quickly do it. It's 35.6 milliwatt. Please check, are you getting? Next problem. For a double heterojunction LED, your tau R and tau NR are given as 70 and 90. You have to find out tau. Yes, how much? 39.375 nanoseconds. Yes, you can try this also quickly. तो आपके पास है wavelength is 980 nano and current is 100 milli. Yes, good. Next. Please check, are you getting 71.3 milliwatt? चेक करिए हुआ कि नहीं. आ रहा है आपका आंसर? Yes. Others, please check. Good. Now the external efficiency of an LED quantifies the efficiency of conversion of electrical energy into an emitted electrical, means it's basically you have your input forward current, that's an electrical energy, and an output power that is emitted out of your device. As I have talked about, eta external is equivalent to output, that is coming out of the device, that is an output optical power divided by the input electrical current. Okay, the losses here will be due to absorption, total internal reflection, and the Fresnels, because when the light is coming out from the device, there is a loss because of the Fresnel's reflections. Okay, for indirect semiconductor, eta external are generally less than 1%, but for direct band semiconductors with the right device can be larger. We can have a larger efficiency being obtained. So P out is equivalent to eta internal into PINT that you have already calculated. So we can use these relationship where n upon 1 upon n into n plus 1 the whole square. N is the refractive index of the material that you are using. So this is what it is. It is, you have an internally generated optical power, but only a portion of it is coming out, and that is an efficiency that we need to find out. So using this relationship, one more problem that can be asked is indium gallium arsenide phosphorus LED. Your lambda 0, tau, tau NR and I is given. If the refractive index is 3.5, the power emitted from the device is to be, P out is to be calculated. I think P in you need to first calculate, and then eta, and then P out you will get. I think I made a mistake here by saying that's a total efficiency. I'm sorry, it's PO by PIN, not I. PO by I is the total efficiency of the device. Yeah, do it. Formulas are given, you just need to try it and see whether you will be getting the values or not. Everything is there. Yeah, wall plug efficiency, what I was talking about is the output power divided by the electrical power. So that is what we need to, that's a final efficiency of the whole device from giving you the relation between the output power and the input electrical power. This is also one numerical which you will find in many papers, old papers if you see. Quickly do this so that at least our LED part is over. Detector and lasers will be able to do fast, because laser actually more than 50% we have already done it in our optical amplifiers. Done. That from that gives you an understanding of how to calculate your output efficiency, wall plug efficiency, external efficiency. Yeah, done.
Yes, ma'am.
Rest of you can try it later. So LED, if we look at the performance, it gives you an incoherent light source with a larger spectral width, which can be used for short distance signal transmission, and for getting a direction more higher efficiency, we can use a double heterojunction structures, and even the edge emitting LEDs gives us a more defined radiation pattern where we can feed the light more power into the fiber. They are used for a multi-mode system. They are preferred for a multi-mode system. So these are the what I was talking about: large line width, large beam width, low output power, low electrical to optical conversion efficiency. As I was talking about, it has got a low efficiency, but it is more robust and gives you the linear characteristics. So this finishes our LED, the first source. So in the next class, the final class, we have to do our lasers and the detectors. That is what is finally remaining. The rest are the part we have covered. One more thing that I have given you and shared in the group is a Padlet assignment, the assignment number 2, that is formative assessment number 2, where you need to actually be preparing the notes on the theoretical part of module number 6. First part is, as we did last time, is you need to post your individual views on the Padlet for each topic, and then you need to form a group of 6 students each for, I think, 3 questions I have given. So 6 students, yeah, we have 6 or 7, you can form the groups and submit your assignment. The deadline for the same is already given to you in the Google Classroom, right? So quickly going through what all we did today is, so we looked into what are the requirements from a source is to be that it should be what are the sources that we use for optical communication is LED and lasers. What are the requirement or the design considerations for making a low sources? It should emit the light at the wavelength of consideration. It should get a narrow bandwidth, highly directional, and dimensions of the fiber should be matched. It should give you the linear have a character change, that is output power and the input electrical current should have a linear relationship. It should be able to modulate the signal, couple sufficient power, stable, cheap, highly reliable. And for that, the material that we used is a direct and an indirect semiconductor. So direct band gap material are the alloys of 3,5 ternary alloys, and by changing their composition, we can actually change the energy band gap, and hence that helps us to decide what will be the wavelength that we'll be getting. So we did few numericals based on it. And the working principle of an LED is a simple PN junction diode, where when it is forward biased, the barrier is reduced, the carriers cross the junction, and once they become minority carriers, they recombine. And once they recombine, it is like falling from a high energy band to the lower energy, and energy is released in the form of a photon, that is the light energy is emitted. The frequency, the wavelength is equivalent to Hc by Eg, where Eg is the band gap of the semiconductor material that is being used. Okay. Then the direct and indirect semiconductors do not give us radiative emissions, that is photons, but they give us a non-radiative or a heat energy is released when the recombination takes place. Okay. Now the structure of an LED could be an edge LED or a surface LED. Edge LEDs help us to confine the radiation pattern, in one direction, and hence more power can be inserted into the fiber. The surface LEDs give us a Lambertian pattern. Okay. Now, how do we use it in our configuration when we are making a source and an LED? We can use Brewers configuration or use the micro lenses to feed the light output from the source efficiently into the fiber. Micro or macro lenses can be used. So these are some of the configuration of using a dome to have reduce the total internal reflection. The homojunctions and heterojunctions. The homojunction, the same material is used. In heterojunction, a different material is used to generate a different band gap. Now the homo structures, we have got lesser efficiency and larger absorption, whereas in heterostructures, because of a sandwich layer or a confinement layer, all the recombination takes place in this area, and hence we have a higher efficiency. So after that, we looked into how to calculate the LED performance. It's through internal quantum efficiency, that is number of photons generated to number of electrons injected. External efficiency, it is number of optical amount of optical power output divided by the number of amount of photons generated. Also, we have a wall plug efficiency, which talks about the total efficiency as total optical power output divided by the internal input electrical power. If we see the relationship between the optical power and the current, we get a direct relationship. And we also can calculate the internal quantum efficiency by using the minority carrier lifetime of radiative and non-radiative recombination. We also solved many numericals, because this part is all numericals will be asked on this, or even the derivation of internal quantum efficiency can be asked. And then finally the LED external efficiency and wall plug efficiency we looked into and solved the numericals. So this is what we covered in today's class. In next class, as I said, lasers and detectors have to be done. Any doubt regarding the assignment that is given?